like full communism or something. Like, I feel like I did okay. That's a half decent hammered symbol considering I can't.
I can tell what it is.
Considering I can't draw, that's actually pretty good.
And what's the message?
Full communism, 2K16.
Full communism. Oh my God. And what's going to happen under communism?
Liberation.
Yeah.
The what?
Freedom and liberation.
Freedom and liberation?
Liberation from the evils of capitalism.
Really? You think that capitalism is evil?
Capitalism is disgusting and evil.
Really?
Capitalism is in and of itself repressive.
Really?
Because in order for capitalism to succeed, people have to be oppressed.
They have to work.
Someone has to lose under capitalism.
Well, somebody has
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Somebody has to lose.
So
under the capitalist system, someone has to be poor for it to succeed.
And you think that everybody is rich in a socialist, communist system?
If it is successful.
If it is successful.
If it is applied successfully.
But it has been tried so many times and it failed every single
So
time.
that's what they said about when capitalism first started to become a system. When it emerged from feudalism, people said, "Oh, well, feudalism is the only thing that'll succeed.
Well,
feudalism is the only successful way. Capitalism will never work," and it failed at first. Capitalism failed at first.
At first, but then it succeeded, right?
It succeeded in doing what it was supposed to do.
Okay, but it succeeded.
It succeeded in doing what it was supposed to do. It didn't succeed in liberating humankind.
Okay, but communism
is still a failure.
But
success is still a failure because it's not liberating.
Success is still a failure. That's an interesting
It did what it's supposed to.
word
do,
combination.
What it is supposed to do is it is supposed to be repressive and.
Okay, so for example, for success is failure.
Yes.
The Seattle Police Department has 8 different oversight boards.
8.
The Seattle Police
12.
Department's oversight boards are designed explicitly so that police cannot be brought up on charges.
Right.
So that's the failure of capitalism.
And it does what it's supposed to do, but what it's supposed to do isn't right.
And that's the failure of capitalism.
Right.
Okay.
No, the failure of capitalism is that even when it's working the way it's supposed to,
People still get hurt, and that's
it's still not succeeding.
Not succeeded.
because individuals are still being repressed.
I see.
And that is what capitalism is inherently an oppressive system.
And communism is inherently a what system?
Successful and
Successful.
not repressive. It's the point of communism is liberation. So it's a society that puts people's common needs before individual selfishness.
And when was the last time that the communist system ever succeeded?
I mean,
Even with its failures.
the only 2 countries that have 0% illiteracy are both socialist countries.
Right.
So
Which are what?
Cuba and Venezuela both
Cuba and
have
Venezuela have
0%
0% illiteracy.
0%.
Everyone in Cuba and everyone in Venezuela can read.
Can write.
Yes.
So
Barbados also has 1%.
Barbados. So that's success of communism.
There's still every country has its flaws.
So that
it's
every-
not, we're not saying that the countries don't have flaws, but their economic system is.
I am.
So everybody can read the Communist Manifesto, for instance, if they want to. But they actually have to in the communist country. It's not a matter of choice. You have
read
to.
a lot of bullshit in our classes growing up. Like we don't have much of a choice in that either.
But
God damn, when I was growing up, all the bullshit I had to read in high school, it's no different. It's just a curriculum.
no different. And you think of a choice in a communist country, what to read, what not to read.
We don't have choices here. Like when I was growing up, I had a strict curriculum of what I was allowed to read, and in fact, it was like.
Do you think they will ever send you to prison for reading something that the government doesn't want you to read in this country?
I think that there's a yes, actually.
Yes,
Actually, yeah, they will send you to prison for reading something that the government doesn't allow you to read.
They tried.
Happened repeatedly.
Has historically, definitely has happened
So-
in American history.
In American history, like today, like right now, like 10 years ago, like 20, 50 years ago, you will go to prison for reading Solzhenitsyn, for instance, right?
House of Un-American Activities Commission was literally a communist witch hunt.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, communist witch hunt.
Yeah.
So in other words, if you're a subversive communist, then they were supposed to let you
Whether
go.
you were a subversive communist or not, if they could imply that you were associated with subversive communists.
Subversive activities, then you go to prison. But what if you read Communist Manifesto, if you display like you're doing over here, hammer and sickle, nothing's going to happen to you. Like nothing is happening to you right now, correct?
On the other hand, do people have... The real question comes down to, is hate speech also included in free speech is one of the main questions.
Well, I mean, we're talking about the practical applications of what you call failed capitalism versus never achieved communism. In a communist country, and I see you have this, East German head over there. In East Germany, for instance, if you happen to get hold of, I don't know, I'm not sure about the U.S. Constitution, but for sure in the USSR, the books like Solzhenitsyn, for example, even their own Nobel literature laureates like Boris Pasternak, Dr. Zhivago, the books were banned. You would go to prison for reading, some books, just reading the books.
And that has happened in U.S. history as well.
Really? Yeah. Really? Yeah. In the 19th, 20th century, people will go to prison for reading Communist Manifesto?
The Alien Sedition Act wasn't taken off of the books until
You would be sent to prison for reading Communist Manifesto?
Would,
really?
Yeah, that happened during the McCarthy era. It started
just for reading the book, they will send you for reading the book.
Yep.
Really? Really?
That was the purpose of the House Un-American Activities Commission.
Exactly. Don't overstrain suspicious activity, which included reading books.
Got one more day.
So.
And it didn't even just include reading books, it included associating with people who read books. So, if you were friends with somebody who had read Manifesto, they could throw you in jail.
Really?
Yeah.
That was happening in this country.
That was happening in this country.
Okay. Let's assume, for argument's sake, it was happening during the McCarthy's period. Did it ever happen before or after McCarthy?
Yes.
When?
It happened before McCarthy repeatedly. The Alien and Sedition Acts were designed so that any published material that was counterintuitive to the U.S. government could be a jailable offense.
A jailable offense.
Yes.
And how many people? Let's assume that that's the case. How many people were jailed? Do you know? Do you have the numbers?
Do you want me to check?
Yeah.
I can look them up. That was John Adams, right? The Alien Sedition
But-
Act
but-
were under
Yeah,
John
but
Adams.
it stayed on the books until the 1900s.
Okay.
Oh yeah, definitely. No, they never took it off. But those acts were passed. The second president of the United States.
But now, speaking of the so-called communist countries, how many people were murdered in the name of, the same ideals of communism?
How many people died for capitalism?
How many people died for capitalism?
Okay,
100
let's-
million Native Americans that died for
Okay, let's delineate the two. When the Native Americans, Indians died, there was no capitalist system here. So I mean,
there was.
no, there is not. But how many people died in the Soviet Union?
Depending on whether or not we're counting Holodomor as genocide, when it was really a famine.
It was a famine. It wasn't intentional.
Holodomor.
It was stupid.
Yes.
Okay,
it was
let's-
a stupid mistake. It was a completely
Mistake.
It was a great.
It was a mistake. I mean, plus or minus $10 million.
They didn't
10 million people
intentionally
died.
kill people.
It's just,
It was
No,
just
it
stupid
wasn't-
mistake.
No, it wasn't a mistake.
It wasn't a.
It was a-
great
it was a
economic
mistake.
error. It was an
No,
economic
it was a
mistake.
time of global ecological upheaval. At
It
the
was
same
an
time, we
economic-
were seeing the Dust Bowl created in the United States. But at no point did anyone
Really?
say, "Well, the Dust Bowl is the
Was
fault
genocide.
of the U.S. government."
Nobody's ever blamed the Dust Bowl on the U.S. government. It was. I mean,
But we
and there
will,
were.
but we will blame a famine on the USSR. So what's the difference?
And but, I mean,
Well,
there-
how about
there were
purges?
some economic mistakes.
What about the
They
purges?
could have done.
I'm
But,
not
I mean,
going to
that's
shed tears for dead Nazis.
Yeah, I'm not going to shed tears for dead.
Really? Who were the Nazis?
I'm not going to cry.
Most of the people who died in gulags, about 87% were
Nazis.
Do you know anyone from the Gulag? Personally?
No,
Did you meet anyone?
no, but I do
But-
read history.
You read history.
Yes.
Well, I was actually born in the USSR.
Really?
I actually lived in the USSR for 29 years. And I actually have friends who were in Gulag.
Really?
So I have a kind of personal experience
Really?
with the system that they're advocating. The system that did murder 50 million people in Russia
My
alone.
best friend was born in the USSR and he disagreed.
Who was born in the USSR?
One of my closest friends.
Well, it's okay that that's your closest friend. I am the person who not was only born in the USSR, who lived in the USSR for 29 years. And not only did I live in the USSR for 21 years, I was involved in the anti-Soviet activities. And I was summoned in 1985 to KGB Lubyanka headquarters, and it wasn't fun to be over there. I mean, it's fun for you to wear this East German hat. Trust me, if you were in my shoes, you wouldn't be laughing. You wouldn't be laughing about, it was a stupid mistake. 10 million people died. I mean, what's 10 million people here and there? I mean, that's exactly what it is.
Economic error.
It's
I'm
a
not
great-
saying it's justified. I'm saying it was a horrible, tragic mistake.
But why was it made?
It was a grave
What-
error.
but
It was a
it's
grave-
far-
because
but-
the
but
entire
purges-
world was in,
Really?
The entire world was in a state of disarray. in terms of
Really?
Ecological circumstances.
Really?
Like we just said, it was the exact same fucking time as the Dust Bowl.
Do you know
Are you
anything
Are you
about?
to blame the Dust Bowl on the U.S.
Do you know?
government?
Do you
No,
know
it's
anything?
Stupid.
Do you know anything about the gulags? Kulaks? Does that ring the bell? And do you know anyone, by the way, who died in Holodomor? Do you know anyone?
No.
No, I do. I mean, she's not alive, but I know her daughter. So the daughter of the person who lived through Holodomor, she was telling her daughter, who I know personally, all these stories. And I know exactly what was happening from not the books, or whatever books you happen to get hold of or choose to read. I know firsthand accounts. So saying it was, just a mistake, I mean, it's a human tragedy caused by the workers of the World Unite system. That's what caused it. When you go to these peasants who work their asses off, and you do the prodrazverstka, if you're familiar with these Russian words, and prodrazverstka means that you take literally all the grain that they work hard for, then families starve, and that's what happened. And the kulaks, like small businesses. I'm sure you're not against small businesses, are you? Well, so you're against small businesses as well?
I'm not against small businesses.
How can I explain this? Say, I talked to a lot of.
I'm against the system that small businesses use to exploit their workers.
But what's the explain?
I believe that every business should be worker owned.
How so? Explain to me.
The workers.
How is it gonna work?
Own the business.
How?
The workers own the business. That's pretty straightforward, actually.
Well, but how?
I'm sorry, I thought that was pretty straightforward.
No, it's
the
not.
Workers own
No, it's not. It's absolutely not straightforward.
Actually, that is.
How is business created in the first place? Explain it to me. How business is created in the first place?
Business is created by workers.
How? Okay, how? Okay.
By labor,
Okay, let's say, how would you know which business to create? Is business supposed to be successful? Do you think that every business is going to? Okay, but how will determine the needs of the people?
You're like speaking over me.
Sorry.
Let me speak.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Like I said, it's workers, and I'm not as great at economics as some of my companions.
But there's common sense. You just say the workers are supposed to have business. How are we going to start business?
Okay.
The communities of people.
Side note.
Sure.
110,000 people were placed in internment camps during World War II by the U.S. government.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, internment camp. Yeah, that's a mistake. Okay, I admit it. How many
that's
people?
That's a mistake.
Yeah, it's a mistake. It's a mistake.
A mistake.
Yes, it's a mistake. It's a mistake.
You told me I couldn't say that the famine was a mistake.
Well, here's the
You
difference.
can't. No. There is no difference. That's
Yes, there's
the
a
exact
difference.
same bullshit.
No,
You were
there's
pulling that hypocrisy.
no, there's a difference.
No, there is no fucking difference.
There's the difference
There's
is
no fucking
the difference is when you make a mistake and nobody dies versus the mistake.
People did die.
Versus the mistake when 10 million people are dead.
Oh, so you're saying is
There's a
Manifest
fundamental
Destiny
difference.
A mistake?
Was that
Was Manifest Destiny a mistake?
the who?
Manifest Destiny?
What is that?
The U.S. obtainment of lands from native peoples.
That's how the U.S. obtained majority of its land. That's a mistake.
Well, who
no, see, you can't pull that kind of hypocrisy. That's not how that works.
Who were the first Americans? But we're going way back in history.
No,
a lot of things happen in history. We're talking about communism specifically versus capitalism.
I'm gonna walk with you.
Okay.
So how would they create a business? You're saying that the business is supposed to be workers owned.
Correct.
So how is it going to work in practice? Let's say in your utopian system, how would you know which business to create? It's easy to redistribute, and mind you, every time when the so-called socialist experiment were made, very unsuccessful ones, the result of which were 100 million people dead. They would take over and redistribute somebody else's wealth, which had to be created by somebody else beforehand. So let's say you expropriate everything. Now you want to, create your own business. How is it going to happen?
Okay,
How are we going
I
to start?
come from a slightly different place.
Sure,
I'm
sure.
I'm a syndicalist personally. I believe that there are lessons to be learned from various socialist systems. I believe that I wouldn't self-identify as a Marx-Leninist, but I believe that Lenin had value in some of what he wrote. He wasn't perfect by any stretch.
You're not problem with the red terror thing. You have no problem with the red terror.
Which part of the Red Terror?